Hi, everybody. This is episode 5 for the Heart Rock podcast, and we're going to be kind of diving into a lot of my parents' childhood and life and just the drastic difference between the two and just life experiences in that. And hopefully, it will touch you or inspire you or encourage you in some way. So, thanks for joining. So, the first question is, and I think we will do you first. I'll ask you first, trying to think of the best way to make it drastically different. Is how would you say your parents parented you? Like knowing how mama was parented, how can you describe with 3 adjectives how your parents parented you?
With 3 adjectives. So the first adjective would be they were giving. They were also boundless, like no boundaries. And I'm not sure of the third one because it could go a couple different ways, but like my parents were extremely loving, but they also were like my dad was not always there. Like he was a very loving father and very caring person, but he worked a lot. So a lot of my childhood, he would come home for dinner every night, but then leave and go to work.
So kind of like that avoidant, or just kind of like surface level.
Um, to a degree, I mean, later in life, he definitely, I think, got a little bit, he became more, I'll just say the word attached to us. And then also, but he just worked a lot and he was supporting the family and he was building a business and he was trying to run his stuff and he was dealing with his dad because he worked for his dad, as well as working with his brother-in-law, which that dynamic family businesses, I mean, as the saying goes, money is thicker than blood. So and my mom she was just trying to hold it together, but she was working on the laurels of what her childhood was, as well as she grew up very poor, like very poor, and my dad did not, and so she was going to do whatever it took to stay out of that.
She was just trying to have the drastic, she was fully just wanting to give you and Chad a different life.
Or make sure that we didn't have the life that she had by any ways, and supporting my dad in whatever ways possible, meaning be the good stay home, be the good wife at home, because she did not have to work. She just raised me and my brother, right. But we weren't homeschooled or anything, but right. Still, so there's
giving, no boundaries, and what would you say with, I feel like what comes to mind, especially with your guys' life now, is work ethic. What kind of discipline was there?
So, I mean, my father I mean, I grew up when you got whipped. When you did stuff wrong, you got a whooping. But those whoopings only lasted up until I was probably like 7. And they weren't like, you know, beat you with an inch of your life kind of thing. Because my dad's face, when you're a kid, when they get in your face, you're scared, you're pissing your pants practically. And so, and like my dad broke he was a TBI, which is a fraternity. They have fraternity paddles. He broke his paddle spanking my brother.
Oh my gosh,
which even pissed him off more. But I mean, like they're thin. It wasn't like my brother was like.
I'm not imagining like a kayak paddle.
No, it's not like okay. No, but it's just a fact. Like I'll just remember, like Dad was more pissed that he broke the paddle than he was at Chad, which kind of says a lot now that you say that out loud.
Yeah.
So, but it was just at least that's the memory I have. But like I said, I mean, my parents were not violent people. It was just, that's what you did. That's how you disciplined kids back in those days. You got a whooping. And my mom, she, the reason why I say is boundless or boundaryless is that, there definitely was things, so discipline, it was there, but it trickled off once we got older. Work ethic was, they gave us chores to do, but I think the best way to put it, there wasn't consequences, like severe consequences when we really messed up, because there's some times that I really messed up and the consequences went out the door like the trash.
Like you burnt down a house and nothing happened.
I egged a house. We used to go egging houses when we were young. You go up, you egg a house, and then and one time we got caught. And the next day, I had told my parents, and the next day I asked if I could go with my friend up to his lake house, and they said yes. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, sorry, Mom, but it's just like I should have been grounded for a week, but it's what happened, So that definitely did not, that was not a beneficial character design on in me to then,
Prepare you for adulthood.
thank you, prepare me for things in the future. So obviously not the whipping part, but it was more of just you hold a firm boundary with your kids when they do bad things. So
What about you, Mama? Let's move over to you. What did your parents? How did your parents parent you?
whew, I'm gonna burn your ass up.
Yeah. Well, I had two sets of parents, and they were drastically different. I will say that I think that both, I know now as being a middle-aged adult and having kids, that both of my parents did the best that they could with what they had.
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that. Then with their unresolved traumas, right? With no tools to work with them on. So I really do get that. And my life as a child was very, very chaotic. So I only saw my dad every other weekend, which is twice a month. So 4 days, twice a month. And him and my stepmother had serious boundaries. Like it was the law. It was very authoritative. As Greg just said, if you messed up, my dad's slogan was, "I'm gonna burn your ass up," and all he had to do was look at you with his big eyes,
His big head.
his big head, and you'd be like, "Ooh." I will say that I got spanked one time when I was a kid from my dad, and that was it. That was all it took. I knew that what my dad said, he meant business, but at the same time, he loved me. Like he would move heaven and earth for me. He really fought for me in a lot of different ways. But he meant business. So he was very authoritative, which I felt very safe with that. But I would also run from it, because on the flip side of that, my mom was trying to hold down 3 jobs. She had a hard upbringing, and she really loved me and wanted to protect me. But she also, I feel like, wanted to be more my friend, and didn't have, she had a hard relationship with her mom. So like, what would that relationship, how do you make a relationship with somebody when you don't really quite have the modeling? Mm-hmm. So I didn't really have many boundaries from her. And because I didn't have many boundaries from her, when she did try to give me boundaries, I would just push back. Like, what is this? Mm-hmm. To which then I would win. And then I became defiant, and that became a very tumultuous relationship. So therefore, like, I felt safe with my dad, but I also would run from his authority because I knew with my mom, I didn't have to do anything.
You had more freedom.
I had I could do anything I wanted, which made me incredibly reckless.
Right. But when you're that age, you're just like, I have freedom.
I have freedom. I can do whatever I want.
I can do whatever I want. It's a luxury.
Yeah, it was a total luxury. But as an adult, like, I can see like how lost I was in that freedom. It was too much freedom. Like what you were saying, like when you don't have this, when you're not designing
guardrails.
You don't have any guardrails when you're designing and building the character of a child. There's no guardrails there. You kind of go all over the place. So.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think like you both had like experiences as kids where you didn't have any boundaries. but for you did have a father who meant business, and as you've said, like, he was a big bully with his boundaries, but he also meant business, and you found safety in that because that was the only area of safety that you had. And for you, Daddy, it was kind of just like this. It was the same thing across the board, continuously. And so, like, my thought is that just came to mind. Who was like somebody in your life that represented discipline and represented outside of your parents, like when you got older and had to realize, oh wait, I have to be responsible. I have to actually, I can't lie about this. I have to pull up my big boy and big girl pants and like get something done. I can't rely on mommy and daddy anymore. I can't, hide behind their back anymore. Like, was there somebody in your life or a moment in your life where you realized that you had to change and fight against that parenting, which is so, like, just against your instincts because it's all you know as a kid? Is like
when we were kids, was there somebody else?
Or in your adult life, or in like young adult life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thought.
Yeah. I mean, I would say a couple things is like in my younger adult life, like late teens, some of my friends' parents, because I would be with them and they had complete families or parents that could be more present because they weren't, holding down multiple jobs, and they would sort of give me the checkup of, you need to make good decisions. And then also, I mean, I think also just messing up a lot, and you get tired of feeling like crap. Like, you can lie your way out of situations, or
responsibilities,
or like, you're trying to like make these decisions, like, internally, like, right, like that's the Holy Spirit that we can identify with now that's saying, don't do that, or do, X, Y, or Z, and you're constantly being resistant to it. But you get tired of feeling awful.
Yeah.
And so I would say that now, not to sound cliche, but like, the Holy Spirit was probably the biggest guide that I ever had, the most consistent guide. And then also, like, when I would call my dad when I would be in trouble or whatever, he would just be like, you got to shape up. Right. Like, he would never bail me out, right, from whatever it was. And that's like, as a parent now, like, he just, like, it must have been so hard for him to hold that line, because I would call him and just say, I need help. And he'd be like, you got to figure it out.
Because I'm sure as a parent, all you want to do is save the day.
All you want to do is save the day.
Yeah. Definitely.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every single time. Even if you don't want to, you want to. Right? Like, right. It's, yeah. So I would say those two things, like my friend's parents, and then the messing up, and the Holy Spirit just being like,
yeah.
What about you?
Well, I hadn't thought about this in a long time, and I will say that as far as my dad goes, like, he was a gentle spirit. Like, he would come at you, or not at, but he would come. He was the type of dad who would get down on one knee and look at me in the face instead of scold me from way up high. And one time, when I was in 5th grade, I stole these quarters out of one of those March of Dimes things to buy myself some candy, and I ended up, that was the one thing that I did learn, is like, don't lie about things. So I told the truth, and I had to go back to the store and stand in front of the cash register guy and tell him what I did and put the money back in there, and, like, just be embarrassed. And then he's like, you have to tell all your friends at school tomorrow. Like, you need to tell each one of them that you're sorry and that you messed up. And I did. And that was the humble moment of, like, saying that I messed up, and not sure what my friends would say, but this is 5th grade, and, your guy friends, some of them were like, wow, that's really, it's not a big deal, but, thanks for telling me, or, some of them just didn't really say much. But it was that moment that when you get that humility that my dad showed me that, you got to make what's wrong right.
Yeah, it's more for yourself than your friends, or like
Yeah,
it's
it was
just
more. Yeah, well, it had nothing to do with my friends. You're
right.
right. It was more that. But like as far as people outside of my world, we lived next. When I was young, we really didn't live in a neighborhood. But it's called Woods Boathouse. It was on the river because we lived on the river in Fairmont, West Virginia, and I could run through this field behind our house to the boathouse. So when I would get out of school, I'd be bored. So I was like, I'm gonna go down to the boathouse. So I'd go down there and hang out with these older people that were probably in their late 30s, or sorry, late 20s, early 30s, and there was two couples, a husband and wife that owned it. And I was just like a rat. I was like their little river rat that would just come down there and I'd do anything they'd ask. I'd be like, can I wax a boat? And so like as far as work ethic, I got a lot from just wanting to be around them and just work and do whatever they had asked me to do, just to be down there because they were super loving people. They're always fun, and then as I got older, like I would go play golf with, they would take me places and kind of just be like my aunts and uncles, like my surrogate aunts and uncles kind of thing. And so I learned a lot from just watching them buy a business and build it and then just trying to be around them. So those are probably the bigger influences to me as a child that was outside of my parents.
Would you guys say that you guys parent a lot different than your parents?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
How was that like when you guys met and you knew that you wanted to have kids together? How did you guys figure out that you guys were going to be on the same page with parenting? Like, was that easy? Was it hard? Like, and what are some things that you guys have done differently than your parents?
Well, the one thing I would start with is that if there's anything that we did consistently is agree on how we were going to parent our kids.
Yeah, I don't even know that we ever had a
Argued.
conversation of like, how
Yeah.
are we going to parent?
Yeah.
I think that I remember one conversation we were driving somewhere when we were pregnant with Sophia of just like, we want to be able to like give enough attention to our kids, like quality attention and be available for them.
Be available.
And I think we both were like, yeah. And I don't think we ever had a disagreement on how to parent you guys from the place of like right and wrong or
they're going to get this and not that, or get that and not this, and just stuff like that. I mean, like, there was a couple times, because I was, the cliche of like the silver spoon baby, and like there was things that I was like, well, we'll just give that to her, and she's like, hell no, we're not going to give them to them. They're going to work for it, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's right. I mean, our kid, you had to
right.
work for your iPhone, for your iPad, for your whatever. You had to work for it,
Or I would be like, don't yell at them, don't yell at them, and you'd be like, they need to learn, So like, we would have discussions like that, but there was never any like tension. Like we always would like, we would surrender if one of us felt very strongly about something.
But, yeah. So yeah. And but as far as being different, like I was able to witness how my father basically parented at the other side of the spectrum from his dad. And what I learned is that the parts in the middle that worked for my dad to become a very successful businessman is because his father was the way he was and taught him that way. And so because my dad's, I'll just say, short version of the philosophy was, I'm not going to treat my kids like my father did. And that was not the best idea. So just using that as a basis, I knew that I was not going to parent my kids the way my dad did, and mom for that matter. So that helped with our decision. That helped with me on my side of the decisions of how to parent our kids, and to look at it more objectively on the basis of what Kim just said, of just spend a lot of quality time with them. I mean, sure, my parents took us on trips and we did things like that, but I think it was the day to day, like when we decided to homeschool you guys, like that was I mean, we had tons of pushback from every angle,
Every angle.
but we were like, I was like, you're a teacher, and then you and Zoe were just like, Mama, you're a teacher, you teach us. And I was like, yeah,
I
and
didn't want to teach.
she did not want to do it. And I was just like, do it. I'll work. We'll figure it out. And sure, we got food stamps for a couple months or whatever, but it's like, or more, but but
yeah, and I think
but
that
it
was
worked.
that was one of the
it was
things
more important.
that we just said, that we wanted to be able to be one of us to always be available for you guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is the payoff that like we were really poor at some points.
Thank God we didn't have a power bill. We were up on the side of a mountain,
right off the grid. But like, does that balance it out? I don't know, but I do think that being able, I know that as a mom, I would not have the relationship, as scared as I was, I wouldn't have the relationship with you and Zoe had I not homeschooled you guys, because it stretched me so much, because one, I felt completely unworthy. I mean, I barely graduated high school. Like literally my teachers told me that they were graduating me because they knew they could see that I put in effort, right? But my grades did not show a diploma, right? So I didn't feel worthy, even though, because I'm a hands-on learner. Yeah. So to academically teach you was just
so daunting.
Was very daunting, but to be available, and to not always, I mean, I definitely feel like that we put fear in the two of you, like a respectful fear, which I do think is important for kids, but we never tried to like entice you with like fear of us. That was not a motive for you for you to be afraid of us, and then just also having boundaries. I mean, I think we both had very firm boundaries with you and Zoe of what you could or could not do. Yeah. And we would hold to it no matter what, usually,
Yeah, within means, but yeah.
So I think that's pretty much how we would parent different.
I will say, just from like the stories you guys have told me and what you just said, like I never had any inkling that we were like moments of
had
time
food stamps.
Had food stamps. I never that you guys were very good at just like keeping our world as kids youthful and kid and elementary, so that there wasn't this like pressure to take care of there wasn't this type of fear for survival like you experienced, or a type of lack of control of your life that just, I'm sure when kids experience that, it's just like you just have that for the rest of your life.
It's very traumatic, and I think that's the one thing that we also felt, is that we agreed that we wanted to keep you guys kids as long as we possibly could. Yeah. Hence, Santa at 13, right? So it's like that, while that
we had the tooth fairy going on, and the Easter bunny, and all the things.
And that's silly stuff, but it's like, it's that youthfulness of like
that you can never get back.
You don't, like, you have 60, 70 years to be an adult. You have such a short window to be a kid, and you need that childlike favor in you to lighten up when you're an adult, and so we just felt very called to like keep you guys youthful as long as possible. And protect that innocence as much as we could.
Protection. Yeah.
What prompted you to like move to Colorado based off of your childhood? Like, I feel like there's so many aspects when you're like trying to move out or get away from your parents, at that like prime stage of young adult, that there's like a reason, or there's like some type of motive from how you grew up and how you want something different. You want to experience something outside of your world that you've had. So why Colorado? Like maybe it just was happenstance. That's where you just landed and you just enjoyed it. But I can think of many friends that I have and why they moved to the places they live now. So like why Colorado?
I was definitely running. I was running away from my crazy life. I saw an opportunity. I had two other friends that were going to go. I had two friends, so I had these three great guy friends growing up. Still friends with them today, but two of them had gone out prior to me moving out and had talked about like how amazing it was,
Yeah.
right? And so then my other friend that I went to college with and another guy friend that I went to high school with, we decided to move out. We just were like, hey, let's go out there. Like it seems like a hip thing to do. But I think in the back of my mind, like one, I was running from this like prison that I felt like that I was in from my childhood. And it was like freedom that I could create I could have a blank canvas.
Right. Create your own destiny.
I could create my own destiny. And I love being in the outdoors. Like I love the wild outdoors. So, I mean, Colorado says that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
like
that masculine, like mountainous, rivers, rock climbing, backpacking.
Tough human vibes.
Tough human vibe. And I was like, rah,
Yeah.
So it just like, for me, it just felt like it met me in what I needed. And so that's really why.
Did you know you wanted to move, like stay there before you got there, or when you got there you were like, this is where I'm staying, like this is
the latter?
Once you got there,
I didn't know. I mean, I didn't. I think I had like $300 to my name or something ridiculous.
And I'm sure driving out there cost half of that.
Well, not back then.
Not back
that
then.
was
with 3 people in the car.
25 years ago. So it wasn't a lot to get out there. It was more like finding a place to live. So like we stayed in a hotel
and buying
for like
food
a week. And I mean, you were eating ramen. You were just eating Cheerios and ramen, like popcorn. Whatever and nothing really back then because you had a metabolism of.
Drank a lot of beer.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was just like
cheap
PBR, beer. But it just I think once I got there and I saw it, and we stayed in this hotel for like a week, and then we found this dome house up on the top of this mountain, and it just clicked. Like it all just started happening. And I don't even remember how the money came together really, but it just did. It just happened. And then everything just sort of started to fall into what felt like place. And so, and I just loved the wild freedom of it all. Yeah. Sorta. Like I really did like it, but it felt like
a challenge.
What happened again was like I found myself again in a boundless state, right? There were no boundaries, and it was the wild open with all kinds of people and all kinds of influences, and I could be with and do whatever I wanted with no boundaries again. So I really literally just went from one environment and thought I was going to get away from it and run into something new and different. But I just put myself deeper
into
the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it just, I mean, it was good. Like I had great experiences, but really being reflective.
Characteristically, it created the problems more.
If I had some things to do over, I might make some different.
And for Daddy, I feel like for you, if I remember correctly, it was like you wanted to go a certain route, and Nana, your mom, kind of convinced you not to do that. So you kind of were like, all right, I'm like, was it kind of an escape for you as well?
It was, I mean, well, it was it was that coupled with my girlfriend at the time and her family. But something I just remembered that, I mean, I was probably like 8 years old, and I was one of those kids who was going to run away from home, and I had the quintessential stick with the handkerchief and the peanut butter and jelly with the Cheetos in the, like, right out of a cartoon, man. And
I was gonna say, isn't that like a
it
cartoon?
was like a cartoon because that's where I got the idea. And I was headed out the garage door, and my brother stopped me and talked me out of it.
That was so cute.
I mean, I was ready to run away. And so fast forward to graduating from college. At that time, I met Anne and her mom. Well, she was an old family friend, but they wanted to move back out west, and I was ready to get out. And I had graduated from college, and I said, "Let's go." And so we moved back. We moved to Denver. I thankfully got to go to Colorado the first time in '84 with my parents to go skiing. So I already got to see the landscape and the enticement. And I was a big skier, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." So moved out there in '90, and just even after we broke up, my mom was like, "Just come home," and I was like, "No," because I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to go to California and become a drummer and go to drum school and all this stuff. And she talked me. She's like, "Well, get your degree first." And so I got my degree, and it was just like, I got to go. So it was. I mean, it was just like, I got to make my own mark
In the
away from
world.
Fairmont.
Yeah,
So, and
that makes sense. Which kind of helped you out in a way. Like it did. From what I like remember, it did like bring you deeper into a lot of the bad habits that you had, but it also helped you like make your mark.
it did. I mean, because that's where I had to, I mean, thankfully, the day after I graduated from high school, I went and lived on my own with three of my really good friends in Myrtle Beach. So that gave me the foundation of taking care of myself, like paying for my own bills, cooking my own food, paying for all my stuff. And then so I felt I knew I had the ability. So moving out there, but then at that point, like I was actually, Anne had a son named Zach, and he called me dad, and I assumed that role of, changing his diapers and taking care of him and all the kind of stuff. And I was reveling in it, at 23. But that didn't work out. So when I left that environment, I was free, but I was like, I had to figure it out, and I had some friends in Boulder and moved to Boulder and started over again, basically. But yeah, the enticement to move home was always there. But it's funny listening to it's called The Hero's Journey, where the hero, not that I'm calling myself a hero, but it's like, you leave home to go search, and you go into the unknown, and you go to find and make your mark, to then return home, which in a kind of sense, when Kim said, "Let's move back to Virginia," we all came back home, and, you bring back with you what you learned out there. And, it's kind of it's my own version of the story, but it's more of the plaque. Oh, sorry. It's more of the place of where you see how to stand more, not so much on your own, but you see the shoulders that you're actually standing on of others,
Mm-hmm. Like
and
who has impacted you along the way,
whose impact and what you did impacted you. Like what, you might not be
Right.
standing on someone's shoulders, but you're standing on, something that's elevating you above to be able to look down. But even there, you might be, if you don't know what you're looking at, you might as well just be looking into the clouds,
Right.
And a lot of times, even though I came back, I was looking into the clouds because I was still doing drugs. I was smoking weed. I mean, that's only smoking weed and drinking alcohol. It wasn't like I was a addict of some crazy thing. I mean, but still, when you do those things, it affects you and it clouds your mind. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's just so crazy. I mean, I was only in Atlanta for a year, but definitely like after moving back, being able to look at and like hopefully I'll have a lot more experiences where I get to go somewhere and come back, and they just create layers within yourself that nobody else can add and nobody can take away. And it is kind of like making your mark. And when you are kind of sure, when you are kind of not sure of yourself, but when you are within yourself and grounded in your body, and you use those experiences to what you could say make your mark, but stand out. Like, how can I use this experience that only I have, that God gave me, to stand out and not care what people think or compare myself to others. That like, you built a house, you started a Montessori school. Like, in the grand scheme of life, those might seem little, but without those experiences, you guys would not be able to stand on and build things the same way you do now. Which is I just think it's pretty inspiring as like a young pupil of life, just thinking about like all the experiences ahead that can just shape me and now Gareth to be the individuals that God created us to be, and not just be another typecast of whoever, a typecast of a Christian, typecast of a married couple, of a virgin, whatever it is. So, well, thanks guys for listening to the 5th episode of the Heart Rock podcast. I hope that you guys come back for the next one and that you are encouraged, and may God bless you.
Right.